co-founders of Executives in Africa. Does what it says on the tin. So we help companies find the right senior leadership to lead their businesses across Africa. So really good to hear about the challenges of talent in Africa and how we can keep and retain the talent in Africa to lead our businesses. So if anybody is interested in hiring currently, specifically African nationals, we're very, very strong on that, then please do come and find me. If I could ask everybody to either take their seats or move out quickly before I introduce our next guests. Please take your seats, ladies and gentlemen. Please come in, take your seats, thank you. So if I could have your attention, please. Thank you. Thank you. Please take your seats. So we're very, very fortunate today to have a wonderful speaker up next. It was a late confirmation. Delighted to have her here. Minister Keegan, who is the UK's Minister for Africa at the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. So newly appointed, has been in the position since September the 7th of this year. So really, really excited to hear what plans you have. But I know that Minister Keegan is very passionate about how investment into Africa can support more prosperous and sustainable growth across the continent. So please do put your hands together and provide a very warm welcome to Minister Keegan. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Sarah. And good afternoon to everybody. It's great to be here. Actually, in the introduction, you didn't really find out much about me, but I've been a Member of Parliament for 5 years. I've been a Minister for 2.5 years, but before that I spent 30 years in many different businesses, in many different parts of the world. And the question that was asked on the panel, I've asked several times myself in various industries that I've worked in all over the world, which is, when's this really going to, when's the potential of Africa really going to be completely understood? And a huge thank you to the Africa Financial Services Investment Conference and personally to Rupert for bringing us together to discuss financing, growth and climate resilience in African countries and their transition to net zero. It's great to have this opportunity to get together to discuss some of these big things and to build those relationships. Now, the journey would be a challenge for any country, even in buoyant economic times, but with incidents of catastrophic extreme weather on the rise, making the livelihoods of vulnerable people even more precarious, it's a journey that cannot wait for a more favourable financial outlook. Now, the African Development Bank estimates the continent's financing gap stands somewhere between $68 and $108 billion a year, which is why the UK government is forging ahead with our mission to stimulate prosperity and mobilise more climate finance across the continent. Our approach is to bring the full weight of UK instruments and expertise to bear from government, the private sector, financial services, science and academia and civil society, and to work in partnership with African governments and businesses. And our end goal is to advance the Sustainable Development Goals and support the development of more prosperous and sustainable African countries. Countries that are a source of stability, more resilient to climate change and other shocks. And countries open to free trade and responsible global action, where people can prosper and fulfill their dreams. The UK is very well placed to play a positive role. We are now the largest foreign direct investor in Africa. We have one of the largest diplomatic networks across Africa, and we've engaged and energetic diaspora communities, which give us a living bridge into the continent. And our financial sector is one of our jewels in the crown, which has a big role to play in financing development and the green transition across the continent. 128 African companies operating across more than 25 African countries have chosen to list on the London Stock Exchange, more than any other stock exchange outside of Africa. Egypt was the first country to issue a sovereign green bond in London, attracting strong demand from global investors and raising $750 million. Last year alone, African issuers raised over $19 billion on the London Stock Exchange. Among them was Benin, who raised 500 million euros with Africa's first sovereign SDG bond in the city. In May, the UK government published its international development strategy, which sets out 4 clear priorities. The first priority was to deliver honest and reliable investment, to support countries to grow their economies sustainably, building on the UK's financial expertise and the strengths of the City of London. Development finance alone can't match the scale of the opportunity. Partnerships between investors, businesses, governments are needed to mobilise finance at scale, and it's crucial to realising this ambition. To deliver on that strategy, we created British investment partnerships through which we are working with the private sector to mobilise up to £8 billion of UK-backed finance a year for developing markets by 2025. The UK will work closely with our G7 partners through the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, PGII, to mobilise clean, reliable finance and help countries grow their economies sustainably. We are using our flagship development finance institution, rebranded as British International Investment, to invest between £7.5 and £10 billion over the next 5 years in green infrastructure, technology, and other sectors in developing economies. Over half of that investment will be made in Africa, and it's already getting projects moving. BII have made one of the largest ever investments of up to £200 million in a joint hydropower venture. It will create 180,000 jobs and provide enough clean energy to meet the demand of over 3 million people. Bringing clean energy to people and businesses in Rwanda, Burundi, the DRC, Madagascar and Malawi, among others. We are also working with our specialist development agency, FSD Africa, to build and strengthen financial markets across sub-Saharan Africa. And they've already been a catalyst behind some of the continent's most significant green finance deals, including the first sovereign green bond in Nigeria. FSD Africa supported Tanzania's recent listing of their Jaziri gender bond, the first gender bond to list on an exchange in Africa. It was 297% oversubscribed, demonstrating the appetite for gender bond issuances and gender empowerment. In Tanzania and Ghana, FSD Africa has provided technical assistance to develop guidelines for green and social bonds, which are shaping that market across the continent. And FSD Africa is behind the new 4R digital platform, which is leading the way in innovations to unlock the potential of voluntary carbon markets for smaller businesses. In recognition of the need to invest in homegrown entrepreneurs, fintech, FSD Africa has backed a new programme with Catalyst Fund, seeking to launch 100 ventures across the continent and accelerate over 80 startups. We are also nurturing clean growth in Africa through our public market mobilisation programme, Mobilist, and through the private infrastructure development group in which the UK government holds a majority stake. Through these vehicles, we've invested $50 million into the Helios Investment Partners Clean Energy Adaptation and Resilience Fund, and $26 million in the Akio Kita solar plant in Mali, the largest solar farm in the region. We're also working with partners such as the Cambridge Centre for Alternative Finance to support innovative digital financial services as a way of building financial inclusion across the continent. Resilience and prosperous economies are built on quality education for all, which is why the UK government has invested so much of its development capital in promoting and providing a quality education for girls who are all too often marginalised from education in certain African countries. And we're also bringing innovative finance to bear on the solution. In partnership with the government of Sierra Leone, we have launched an education outcomes fund, which will pay up to £11 million over 3 years to improve learning outcomes and achieve concrete targets in literacy and numeracy for over 134,000 primary school children across 325 schools. The programme has been designed to include an additional 20% premium payment for improvement in girls' learning outcomes compared to boys, recognising the additional importance of girls' education and the additional resources and attention needed to ensure that girls are in school and learning. By tying funding to measurable results and leveraging partnerships with the private sector, programmes like these will have a greater impact. It will improve the lives of many more girls and strengthen more families and communities. They are also a testament to the UK's expertise as a global leader in outcomes-based financing. In addition to our own work to stimulate investment in Africa, we also use our diplomatic influence to build financing and development alliances with allies. At COP26, we re-energised the $100 billion climate finance commitment from developed countries and committed to spending up to £11.6 billion ourselves in international climate finance between 2021 and 2026. Another success story from Glasgow was the South Africa Just Energy Transition Partnership, which brought big government donors and private finance together to support South Africa's green energy and green growth plans. We also used our G7 presidency last year to work with development finance institutions and the multilateral development banks, who together committed to investing over $80 billion into African businesses over the next 5 years. And through our G7 presidency, we are supporting developing markets to work towards standards that will increase access to ESG finance. I think we can all be proud of what the UK government and the private sector are doing to stimulate investment in Africa. Our partnerships with African governments and businesses are helping to create good jobs, build resilient and productive economies, and are lifting many more people out of poverty. AFSIC provides us with the opportunity to engage and to learn from each other. There is great potential at this conference and in this room, and I look forward to seeing its impact across the continent. Thank you.